Okay, so this week is the White House Correspondents' Dinner, aka Nerd Prom. I hate when they call it Nerd Prom, but anyway, I we're not going to the dinner. We're going to the anti-dinner, which is the Substack party, which is labeled the new media party, which I think is definitely a way to put it. So we're all looking forward to that. Hi, everybody. Elise here of Cosmopolitics and Dany. Pletka, what the hell? Ready for Hot Takes Happy Hour. Dany, you have a new tool to show us today.
I do, but it's still 5:29. I want to wait till the witching hour to show off my magical gift. Uh,
Ever been to the dinner before?
oh my God! Don't forget, I used to in the olden days. Don't look at my neck when I say that. Go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner when I was a journalist, and the president was always there. I confess to you, I hated it then. It's not a nerd prom. It's just a self-absorbed, yucky.
Well, and also have always hated about it. And I do think it's like it could be a nice way for everybody to get together and say, well, we cover each other, but we can, celebrate the various institutions that make a democracy, a healthy government, a healthy press. But what it's become over the years is like just everybody partying and being like, and what I hate about it is it represents what's really incestuous about Washington, which is, it is true that the media and the government, or in the Hill, everyone's like, it's so incestuous that your socialization is all about work, and then you're a lot of times expected to trade friendship and access for acquiescence. And like, I just think it's kind of gross. I think.
Baby, you speak for me. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is absolutely true. People say that Washington is Hollywood for ugly people. The White House Correspondents' Dinner is Saturday Night Live for losers. So,
I though.
all right, I got to show off my stuff. So, you did your intro. I'm sorry, guys. I need my glasses. I know, Veronique, they reflect.
Like Danny's glasses or not, I love them.
I love them too, but you can see all the blue and you can see the reflections, and it's not perfect. Okay. So, all right, I'm showing off my swag. Ben, our amazing research associate, who I love, got me this, which is the cocktail shaker for What the Hell is Going On, my podcast with Mark Thiessen. So I have put this week's cocktail into this beautiful Yeti thing. It's not sweating on my desk, it's insulated, and it contains my lovely cocktail, which I cheated a little and made kind of a frozen cocktail because I'm like that. So hang on a second.
So if you buy subscription to Cosmopolitics, I could get one for myself, unless Eric Weisbrod wants to buy me one.
Hint, hint. All right, folks. Cheers for me. Here's our Hot Takes Happy Hour margarita, and Elise has hers in her plastic cup.
I'm non-alcoholic this week. It's a mocktail.
Oh, well, there is a little note at the bottom of the recipe. If anybody looks at the Substack or the notes, I put in the. Well, I actually couldn't call it a mocktail. What did you say about mocktail? That is the
Climate
Right. It's climate change of the 21st century. So I put in the alcohol-free version. Make it for yourself. I'm going to try mine now. It's amazing.
It is just in time to talk about Pete Hegseth. When you talk about Pete Hegseth, let's take a drink.
Oh my God. No kidding. And
So if the first signal gate wasn't enough, then there was this. I think it was around the same time though. He was sending out signal chats, and not only to like Mike Waltz and his crew, but also to his wife and his lawyer and his brother and whatever. But the question is, I mean, what do you think? Is he out, or does he live another day?
so I want to make an observation that I know you will appreciate. I've known Benjamin Netanyahu a very long time, and for the last 20 plus, no, God help us, more, 30 plus years, he has taken his wife to almost every meeting. Why? Because he was a notorious philanderer. And his third wife, Sarah, who he's been with for many years, and they're very close, um, insisted on going to all his meetings with him. And Pete Hegseth,
John or something?
You broke up again. I don't know why I can't hear you. Say it again.
So that he wouldn't, like, you know, kind of give any officials the eye.
Well, so that he would not say he was meeting with the president of the United States, but really be meeting with a very attractive woman instead, I assume. But Pete Hegseth has that reputation, and so the fact that his wife was on this signal made me think of that.
Well, I don't know. What do you think? Does he live another day or no?
I'm shorting those odds. I don't think he does, and I don't think it's just because of the signal stuff. I think that there are a lot of missteps he's made that people haven't remarked on, that haven't been reported, where he's been reversed by the president himself, or he has, quote, misunderstood the president himself. What do you think? Is he gonna last?
Not gonna get fired as part of like this whole signal thing. I think, maybe they'll let it pass and then the president will find a way to get rid of him. Listen, I mean, the last couple of weeks he fired these aides and marched them out of the Pentagon. He accused them of leaking, attributed the noise to the media. Okay, whatever. I'll fine. And then his chief spokesman, John Ulott, wrote this Politico op-ed saying it's been a month of total hell and chaos, and said, what Hegseth is saying. We want to be focused on war fighting. We want to be, an ethier warrior culture, but it's not focused on war fighting. It's focused on drama, and Trump may like it if it's his own drama. He doesn't like anyone else's drama. And I don't know if you had a chance to read this speech that he gave to
I
the
did.
college. Now, don't forget, these aren't young recruits that it's like, oh, bro, let's go, Warriors. These are commanders that he's basically telling them in all this stuff about no woke bullshit, no pronouns, no this, no that. He's telling them that they're fucking up. And so basically, I just thought that speech, and a lot of, guys in the military I talked to, and women, there are women in the military too, it was just tone deaf. And I just think Trump doesn't need another headache. And I think eventually he's going to get rid of him.
So I think that you've pinpointed in that Hegseth speech a problem for the administration, which is that most of the speeches, not to speak of, and we should come to the Marco Rubio piece on Substack as well, because I think this is the same phenomenon. Most of the speeches and articles that are written by senior administration officials, and remember, I am not as down on this administration as you are every day. Um, some days, yes, but every one of those speeches is a note to Donald Trump. They are not giving a speech to the audience that is in front of them. They are talking to the president. They are making their case to the president. It's as if they are still on Fox News. And that's the problem. And again, I love my guys on Fox News. My podcast co-host Mark Thiessen is a Fox News star. But when you're Secretary of State, when you're SecDef, you're not on Fox News anymore and you have a different audience. And they don't get that.
Well, the thing was, and we'll talk about the State Department reorg in a minute, but Marco Rubio, in writing his op-ed, it was much more, the language of it was full of vitriol and full of hatred, and this radical left State Department. Which, I understand that I think have a more of a perception that a lot of the people in the State Department, are leaning progressive, although also have many friends that have been in the State Department that have worked for many administrations, Democratic and Republican. But um, what he wrote, and yes, the State Department put out their first Substack with this op-ed by Marco Rubio. It was all of this language, as you said, designed maybe not only to Trump, but maybe to this MAGA base. And it was really a cover for what turned out to be a very, you know, unsexy, kind of a little bit more muted State Department reorganization than we first thought, that these documents that were floating around originally that leaked out.
So I think you point to something, a couple of really important things here. Number one, you were the chief correspondent at the State Department for CNN for ages. Let me not pick a number of years in order to, because you're like what, 24, 27. But look, I think reform, absolutely. Right? Remember, you and I know all too well how the regional bureaus crush the functional bureaus.
Song native when they're like, talking when they're working in the same cubicle for 23 years on the same. I mean, look, every agency and the State Department in particular is bloated, doesn't have fresh thinking. It needs some, as I said this morning, jazz hands, right?
It does, and that's the thing, and the reorg itself is not crazy. It's not actually, again, there are ways that I think you and I would tweak it that would be different, but it's not indefensible. The problem is actually the MAGA magic that is being played around it as if somehow it is a settling of vendettas. It is a settling of grievances. And I freaking hate the grievance mentality of the left. I do not think the right needs its own analog in which it complains constantly about its grievances against the establishment. Leadership is everything. Do a good job. Tell your people what you're going to do. Tell them why you're going to do it, and do not pretend that you are righting the wrongs of the evil left at every moment. It's okay a little bit, but because that's what an election is for,
Well,
but it's
that's
not okay all the time.
the reasons why the Democrats lost themselves because they were so busy talking about Trump himself and how, and I don't disagree with a lot of the things that they said, but I don't agree with all of them. And they made it about one man and not about their own vision, right? So,
Can I? We don't have this on our list, but I've got to include this. And I sent this to you. Polling numbers about Democrats, and I know we're going to talk about this at the end of at the end of our hot take happy hour, happy half hour. Um, but what has happened to the Democratic Party? They're still doing this.
okay, this is what I think.
Tell me.
The Democrats have lost their way because, there's no leadership, there's no ideas. I think also the Trump has kind of hit them with so much incoming that they don't know what to do and they're rudderless. I think on the right, and this is where like I think I'm like to consider myself an equal opportunity offender. I think on the right, like they're just, so scared not, and you saw like what Lisa Murkowski said the other day, which I thought was really interesting. And I think there are a lot of other lawmakers that feel not only are they afraid of being primaried. I mean, this is my personal feeling, but if I'm afraid of being primaried for speaking up for my beliefs, I don't belong in Congress. But they're also scared for their personal safety. And Lisa Murkowski said the fear of retribution is very real. And I think a lot of these people, not from Trump, not from the White House, not from this, but there are a lot of people out there that are threatening them. And it's just unacceptable.
Right, like the anti-Semite who went after Josh Shapiro. I mean, no, 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 no side, no justification, no nothing.
And we were talking about this earlier. And I think this is something that we're going to just keep coming back to because I think we both agree. This is one of the few things we agree on that,
No, we agree on a lot.
but I think that this, and I don't remember where it started. I want to say, I don't even remember where it started, but I think social media has a lot to do with the fact that anonymous or whatever, this kind of lack of civility and, this hatred and the language that we're using about one another and about politicians and about how politicians are using it against others. President Trump, I read this Easter message where he was like,
Oh yeah,
I think
awful.
worst president in the whole world and sucked and whatever. And I don't think he was the greatest president, but just the language everybody is using, the left using against the right using against the left. And I wrote this in my kind of follow on to our thing last week. Like, I lost some viewers because we're doing a Substack together. I thought it was because y'all saw Janice Labott watching General Hospital by mistake. That was my bad.
We love Janice Labott. It
But
was you.
but it's because like people just want confirmation bias. They just want people that disagree with them. And we need to be able to disagree more agreeably. We have to do better.
I agree with you, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. Look, there's the tenor of President Trump's Easter message. There's the fact that Joe Biden chose the Easter message to celebrate a trans day of recognition. It's like, don't do that, right? Have respect for people. There are people who don't think that's okay. Don't do it on Easter. Easter is not a day, Donald Trump, where you go after your enemies. And I'm not Christian. I don't celebrate Easter. Nonetheless, I have respect for the holiday and for the fact that it is an extraordinarily important holiday to Christians. But all of this, you and I, you're right. We disagree all the time, but it never descends to invective. We don't troll each other. We don't get jollies out of scoring off of each other, because actually, what makes us happy is thinking about how we can fix problems. And if you are that person, you belong in politics and you belong in political commentary. It doesn't get as many clicks, though. Hate is such clickbait.
And I know it's like it should be this us against the problem, not me versus you mentality. And just a couple of years ago when I saw lawmakers like dissing each other in such personal and profane and horrible ways, um, I just think it's so unacceptable and so not becoming of America and what America represents. I think what America represents in the world is of in question right now. But seriously, like this infighting and this bickering and this polarization, and that's why I'm so focused on young people, because I think our generation maybe need more happy hours, but I just think we got to stop it somewhere.
So I can't see the time or any questions or any comments without my glasses. So Veronique said, "Get glasses." I keep name checking Veronique as if anybody on here knows who she is, but really, really dear friend to both of us, and our former ABC News producer, former AEI media boss. And she said to me, "You got to get non-reflective glasses," but I can't see Elise and I can't see myself and I can't see your questions and comments without them. So I apologize. I'll get some soon. But look, exactly. Let's talk more about something that you and I agree on, which is something we touched on last week. These talks with the Iranians are ongoing. OMFG, what? The Marco Rubio gave a very interesting interview with Barry Weiss, and
No, listen, for whatever they're saying on Fox News or Breitbart or this or that, I thought the Free Press, I thought Barry Weiss did a really thoughtful interview with Marco Rubio, and it gave a little bit more about his thinking and the administration's thinking on Iran. But you saw that they announced that Michael Anton is going to be the lead negotiator. I mean, okay, maybe I don't even know. Like, does he know anything about non-proliferation? Does he know anything about nuclear? Does he know anything about Iran? I don't know the answer to that. All I know is, that he was, more about I just know about his rhetoric. I really don't know anything about the substance. So you got to tell us.
the Flight 93 election. Mm,
Spoke for the
that's that's him.
during the last term, worked for Bush's NSC. Rubio did say in the interview that the US is pursuing an agreement that would allow Iran to have uranium, enriched uranium. So maybe it's not, maybe we don't need like a really strong negotiator. Maybe they're just gonna, you know,
Look,
start like the
look. Okay. A. Um, we talked about the fact that Witkoff said last week, and we talked about this all last week. So people want to hear what we ranted about. Witkoff shared ranting, I should add. Can tune into last week's because we both posted it on our Substacks. But Witkoff is our Russia-Ukraine negotiator. He's our Hamas Gaza-Israel negotiator. Plus, he's now our Iran negotiator. And then Michael Anton has been added into this. Look, we've had lots of people who don't know Iran or not don't know proliferation. I'm not a super big fan of that. But the problem is the mixed messages. Okay, Iran can have a peaceful nuclear program, but they can't enrich uranium. This might be in the weeds for some people, but this is the key, right? What does Iran do? They enrich uranium in order that they can build a nuclear weapon. And so Rubio said again, they can't enrich. They're not allowed. That begs the question for me, what are they talking about? If that's a red line for the United States, and by the way, for Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, a red line is continuing to enrich uranium. If we have two red lines that do not meet, what are we talking about? And what worries me is that the people who are the principals, particularly Witkoff, use this as a negotiation, right? Oh, maybe we could give that up. We can't give that up. That is the JCPOA, the Obama Iran deal minus. And this is the challenge here is that, I get it. You don't want to put bureaucrats, graybeards, people hacks into important jobs. You want someone who's your representative. Fair enough. Still, you got to know your brief because if you're giving this stuff away to the Iranians, they're going to get all of the sanctions lifted and a nuclear weapon.
Well, and then you have the Ukraine negotiations where, like, every day it's talk about mixed messages. One day Russia can have everything. The next day they're getting distracted and they're getting tired of it and they're going to walk away. And then the next day, today, Trump is, after this horrible attack in Ukraine, in Kiev, Trump put on social media, Vladimir, stop. Not necessary and very bad timing. Yes, I'm sure that will really stop Vladimir Putin. Um, but what I want to talk about, and you can,
I want to talk about Ukraine for a sec because I want to give a slightly different perspective. Um, so there are a lot of good people on Ukraine in the Trump administration. I know that that's not a commonly held belief, but it's true. I don't think Witkoff is one of them. That's my opinion. Um, the challenge here is something really important. Um, we need to give the Ukrainians security guarantees, okay, that the Russians are not simply going to take this time and use it as they did from 2014 to 2022, as they exploited both Obama and Biden's reluctance to do anything, not Trump's in this case. And we need to give them guarantees so that they can deter Russia. Without that, this is nothing. That's number one. Number two, nobody asked Zelensky whether he would accept Russian sovereignty over Crimea. And yet he is out there spouting off that I can never accept this. Okay, we know that. No one asked you. Don't
well,
don't get out there. No, listen, I don't agree. I don't agree with a lot of this. I don't agree with a lot of this. But
that's
but
the thing. Like, oh, they're going to have to give up Crimea. If they don't think they're giving up Crimea, they're not serious.
they've given up Crimea. Let's be frank.
But so is the rest of the world, right? All of a sudden, it's this big thing for the last what? When did it go in?
That
2000.
is so true.
Everybody gave Crimea to the Russians. No one's really said anything about it. Two quick things. One is I just want to give a plug for this piece that you had about, President Trump needs to use his famous phrase, "You're fired," more often.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Right. I picked three top offenders. One of them was Pete Hegseth, the other was Steve Witkoff, and the other one was Peter Navarro, author of this uh, crank. This is the only word for it, right? Crank tariff idea. Not that we need to use tariffs strategically, but how we use tariffs, how we calculated tariffs. Can you imagine the confidence that global markets would have if Donald Trump actually got rid of these three buffoons? Buffoons, right? So, that I didn't make it's not a cartoonish argument. I tried to lay out the argument in a Substack length, but exactly, I agree. You've been doing amazing stuff this week too. Pretty amazing. First of all, you did one of these chit chat things with Tara Palmieri talking about weird, her weird fight with.
This whole thing about like independent journalists, a lot of people are leaving mainstream media because, mainstream media is just not kind of standing up for free press principles, and they want to, want to be able to report without fear of favor. She kind of said something, derogatory. I won't say it's disparaging because it turns out it was true about Sean Spicer not giving her a press pass. It was such a little innocuous thing. When she was with Puck on a podcast, she didn't say anything about it for all these months. Now, all of a sudden, she leaves Puck and she's doing some great independent reporting here on Substack. And all of a sudden, he sends her a lawsuit. It's just completely ridiculous. But I do want to, before we close, talk about this Harvard youth poll. I
Oh
know you're
yeah,
guest on your pod next. Is it this week or next week?
we're interviewing him tomorrow, and then it'll be on next week. It's crazy. Talk about it.
Basically, Harvard does this spring poll every year, and I just want to bring up my notes here. New poll from it's the Institute of Politics from the Kennedy School. Look, this generation, Gen Z, if you will, really facing financial hardship, frayed social bonds, not only from COVID, but then afterwards, declining trust in institutions. More than 4 in 10 young Americans under 30 say they're barely getting by. Less than half feel a sense of community, with only 17% reporting deep social connection. Just 15% believe the country is headed in the right direction, and only less than one third approve of Trump or either party of Congress. And like less people want to have children, they're socially isolated. Support for US involvement remains very low and deeply kind of divided by party, and only 19% trust the federal government to do the right thing. So what it does is it paints a picture of a generation that kind of really feels disconnected from institutions, uncertain about the future, and really skeptical that government is working in their interest.
Right. So I thought it was interesting. Commentary Magazine had a piece in which they called this they called this the 1960s version for the right. And on top of that, somebody else today labeled it, actually a conservative, Eric Erickson, labeled it the woke right, which I thought was really interesting. That's what it is, and it is fascinating to see these young people who, who are dissenters, who think that they're sticking it to the man, but they're sticking it to the man from the right. The problem is in the 60s, of course, you had the right, that the generation that took it to the streets, that was represented so nicely at Haight Ashbury. Say it again.
Peace, love, and rock and roll.
You know, if any of those things, rock and roll was pretty good, actually, I gotta say. If this generation could generate the kind of music that we got then, I might be more excited. But it is what's different is exactly what you talked about, which is the phenomenon of eroding civility, the podcasts, that are amplifying their views, that are radicalizing people in ways that are deeply uncivil, deeply hostile, and not really rooted in any particular set of principles about this country and what genuinely makes it great. And so I worry a lot. I'm really excited about this podcast. I'm looking forward to it'll be out next Thursday.
I'm looking forward to it too, and that's why I've been here at the Council on Foreign Relations trying to do a lot on youth engagement. Doug Oliphant, our friend, is saying exactly to be counterculture is largely right. You know, I think it's yes, there's and I think polls show we're seeing a greater movement by young people to the right. Everyone thinks that young people are so progressive, and liberal and climate change and everything, and that is true, but I think on other issues, they're very conservative. I know young men are, leaving in droves to the right. Um, but I just think young people kind of are tired of the polarization. They're tired of the bickering. They're tired, and these people are going to be running the world. And it's like we need to help them assume the mantle of leadership because we're not doing a very good job. And so I don't think you give someone the keys to the kingdom at 25 and be like, here you go. I think we have to help. And I think we have to bring them into the conversation about issues shaping their future. That's really what it's about.
Right. No, no, listen, I agree with you. I've loved your project ever since you began talking about it when you founded Zibby News and then when you went to the council and started working on this. You know, there is a huge generational divide. And it's not all of the bitching that people like me, and I am a baby boomer, do about younger generations and their many, many defects, all of which are true, by the way. But it is the imperative to actually include them so that we are able to have some shared narratives. You know, when I look, today is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And you know, I'm scrolling through my Instagram, which is very personal, that is, you know, all about victims of the Holocaust and victims of Nazism and extremism. And you know, if you don't understand where extremism can take you, whether it's extremism on the left or it's extremism on the right, if you don't understand, you know, let me not utter George Santayana's cliche, but if you are not capable of feeling that empathy and understanding that narrative and understanding that the Holocaust is not a tool of exploitation, it is a piece of history. If you don't share that, and if people like you didn't do the work that you do to really bring people in and try to have a shared narrative, we're going to go in horrible directions. So I think it's hugely, hugely important. And I'm really grateful to you and to the council for doing that. Never, words never uttered before. The Council on Foreign Relations, go.
Never, you've definitely never uttered those words before. And I also think it's like, look, we have a shared narrative as Americans. We have a shared narrative as Jews. We have, there are a lot of shared narratives. And then some of us, we all have our own truths and our own story. But we just need to be able to, look at someone else and say that their lived experience, like, is not any less than mine. I may not agree with it. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like,
Tell Elise never to use the words lived experience and my truth again because she sounds like Meghan Markle and now she's going to yell at me afterwards.
definitely. Uh, I definitely don't want to love, Elise said that to me a couple days ago, and I'm just parroting them, just like I parroted Brian Catullus by saying that we're taking an edge off the week's news. But
Guys,
like,
thanks for joining us.
have our own shit. How about that? We all have our own shit, and we just need to be able to like own it, but appreciate that other people have their shit too.
Cheers to that. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. Next time, don't hesitate to pitch your questions in, and I'll get my non-reflective glasses so I can read your comments along the way. But thank you all for being part of this. Elise and I love it, and we're really grateful to you.
And next time, hopefully, someone will send me a Cosmopolitics Yeti.